Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, it's time for Customer Experience Radio. Brought to you by Heineken Company, real estate advisors specialized in corporate relocation. Now here's your host, Jill Heineck.
Good afternoon and welcome to this very special edition of Customer Experience Radio. I'm your host, Jill Heineck, and I'm a business owner, real estate advisor, and customer experience enthusiast. You know, I run my business mainly on deep relationships and traveling around and really getting to know people and where they're from and the areas in which they're coming from so that I can share, what Atlanta is about if they're relocating to the area. And it's a great way to really get a feel for other markets and get to know other people. And so one of the things that I really love about our next guest is that part of her work is traveling and that has become a great big hobby for her as well. And so I'm really excited to welcome Leticia Tavares, and she is the owner of the blog Hospitality Vitae. Am I saying that right, Leticia?
Yes, that's perfect.
And she, she's a hotelier and she's also a Harvard MBA grad, and she's originally from Brazil. And since 2016, she's been working in the travel and hospitality industry, and she's currently the director of operational excellence at a large hotel in Atlanta. So I'm really excited to welcome you today, Leticia. I know we've had some scheduling challenges, so welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Joe. I'm excited to talk to you today. As you said, I've been in the hospitality industry since 2016, but I've been always passionate about the industry, and I've been always passionate about traveling. First of all, I've been to more than 40 countries, so hoping to share more with you.
That is amazing. And has that been a lot of on your own volition, or has that been also part of work?
So I have traveled a bit for work. So since 2016, when I joined the company that I work for, I had to travel a bit because of work, but mainly in the US. So I've worked, although I was always based in Atlanta, I have worked in Nashville, I worked in DC, I worked in Florida for a little bit. But personally, I just love to travel. So my first trip abroad, I think I was 10 years old. I actually came to the US. So I went to Disney with my family back in 96. And then after that, I guess I didn't stop traveling.
You got the bug.
Yeah.
I love it. So do you think that your travel experiences leading up to, let's say, the 2016 timeframe got you interested in, giving that same kind of guest experience in your hospitality career?
So I think that one of the things that drove me to hospitality was the fact that I feel it's a career that you just deal with people from so many different cultures. You work with people with so many different backgrounds. And I've always been interested about that diversity, which I think it's really positive for the industry. So when I came to the US from Brazil back in 2014, I knew that I wanted to be in a company that was multicultural, that valued diversity. And I just found myself in hospitality. I think it's wonderful that we get to, work with people with so many different points of view, and, and just we learn from their different backgrounds and from their experiences too. And I think, maybe when you travel, you don't realize, but you get to learn, so much about the local culture. And one thing that I always try to do when I travel, is get to meet locals as well. If either it's like, I have a friend who lives in that country that introduced me to someone who is there at the moment. I just love being able to, get to know a place through the eyes of the locals. So I think that, if you think about, I think everyone, when we're thinking about our careers, if we connect the dots, I think that part of, looking back, in my, previous careers or like previous experiences, traveling was always something that was, part of it that I could see, now, again, being part of my career. So I think that's always going to be, no matter what I do next, I think that's always going to be important to me.
And I relate to that so much because being in the relocation industry, so much of our, network is outside of my market. So I'm traveling to these events to meet other relocation professionals, but I've always built some time or a day or extra to see the city that we're in. So we go to Chicago, we've done LA, we've done Dallas, Houston, places that I wouldn't normally probably go. Maybe a few of those I would go more often. But it just gives you that flavor, like you said. And I try to find those couple of things that are locally based, not necessarily tourist based, that you would do when you're in those cities. So I totally agree with that. And I think that makes it so much more exciting, whether you build it in on the front end or the back end, but either way, makes work more exciting as well.
Yeah. It's always fun to be working, in a new city, in a new place. I always try to get the time to just do something, interesting and, get out of the hotel, get out of, your comfort zone there and just go explore a little bit.
So talk to us a little bit about your role in operational excellence, because I think that this does really connect well with the customer experience. So talk to us a little about what your day-to-day looks like.
Sure. So first, when I joined the company that I work for, I did a rotation. So for like 1 year and a half, I was doing different things in hotel operations. So I worked, I think after coming out of an MBA, I didn't see myself going into a corporate role. I wanted to learn from the ground up. And especially, if you work in a hospitality company, it's important to understand, how to manage a hotel, because I didn't want to be in a corporate role without knowing what really happens on the day-to-day, without, relating to the staff and knowing what a front office agent does or a housekeeper does. And, and there's just so much to learn with the staff. And that's why I decided to go into the operational side. And for 1 year and a half, I did a rotation. So I was in housekeeping, front office, I did marketing, I did a little bit of corporate. So I was a few months in an office we have in Miami. I did marketing, I did finance in Atlanta, actually. I did guest relations. So I just got a feel of so many different areas in operations. And then I thought that was perfect, because when I found this position as Director of Operational Excellence, it was kind of a position that I could bring all that I learned into, this perfect position that was almost like made for me. Because you get to be in operations, but you also get to, be a little bit in the background and like do some analysis and, look at data, look at customer research, you read what the customers are saying. So I like that balance of being, part in operations and part more like doing more like a strategic planning, strategic thinking. So that was perfect for me. And I think on the day-to-day, what I would say that I do, and that was more, I guess, before COVID, because I guess after COVID, my role changed a little bit. But I do basically run process improvement projects within the hotel. Since my hotel is really big, it's almost 2,000 rooms. We do have many process improvement projects that we want to work, with. And that really starts by reading the customer research. So by reading what the customers are saying and identifying what's kind of wrong or what could be better, that gives me ideas for projects that I could work on in the hotel. And, I never do anything isolated. My projects are all, I always build a team with hosts. Right. So front of the line hosts that are leaving that on the day-to-day. They're part of my work team, and together we work to solve an issue, and make the experience of the guest better. So that's my goal. I want to make my associates' lives easier and their work easier, right? I want to eliminate what we call wastes in, their work. And I want, to make the guest experience better and seamless. So that's, very important to me as, I do any projects in operational excellence.
Right, which makes perfect sense, because if your associate team is feeling empowered and feeling like they're all working towards a goal, they're going to deliver an excellent experience to the guest.
Yes, absolutely.
Right,
yes, and
that's ultimately the goal.
and I talk a lot about customer, but for me, there's always the internal customer that is the associate, and the external customer that is, in my case, my guests. So I'm always, when I do the voice of the customer, basically when I read the surveys, I'm reading external surveys from guests, but I'm also talking to the associates to understand, okay, so what's your point of view? Like, what's wrong? What could we do better? Tell me about your job. Let's walk through the process. What do you do on a day-to-day? So both, points of view are extremely important. And I think that sometimes we talk so much about customer, but our internal customer, which is our associate, they have the best ideas, right? So they're the ones that I want to be working very close with.
Right. So is there a project a recent project that you've completed that you can talk about, or kind of give us an overview of, possibly what the challenge was and then how you overcame that, or what you implemented to overcome it?
Sure. So actually, I'll share with you too. I don't know if you're putting this video and you can share a link, but I have an interview that I talk a lot about this specific project. So if anyone has more questions, I'll be happy to share with you.
Great.
But basically, we saw that our scores in in-room dining, which is, the food you order from your room, they were not great, right? They were kind of stable, not where we wanted to be. And we were wondering, like, what is going on? So, my first step was, let's look back and let's see what the guests are saying. And then, I'm lucky to have a lot of data. I know that many companies don't have that amount of data, but because we send surveys to guests regularly, I have, a lot that I can read. And from that point of view, the voice of the customer, which is my guest, I had a lot of people saying either, the food is cold or it's taking too long to get my meal. So I think basically timing and quality were like the two big things. And then I then spoke to the associates to understand what's going on. And, and it's the chef saying, well, the chicken's not right. And then the runner, that is the person that actually brings the food up, saying, well, I got the request to pick up the food. It was too late already. The food had been sitting there. So you got it. So that, that first, discovery phase, I guess in the Six Sigma language, we have some tools that we use, but that first phase, it's all about understanding that voice of the customer and really understanding, okay, what's the process we're trying to analyze? Because you can't tackle it all. You could say, okay, I want to understand, how the food is made and, what happened. So you could like try to understand as much as you want, but in fact, you need to be a little bit more, let's focus. What do we really want? So you need to define when the process begins and when the process ends. And for us, the process begins when the order is placed on the phone, and the process ends when the order is delivered. That's what I was trying to see. I didn't want to see anything before that and anything after that. And then I built a team of hosts, and including chefs, the runners, the person that takes the call, that is talking about the food, because that's all, these are all the people that live and breathe that process. And then from there, there are different phases in the project, but basically we're trying to understand what's the root cause, what's really wrong. And you never do a Six Sigma project jumping into conclusions. I think that was my biggest learning when I went through green belt and black belt training is, you can't jump into conclusions right away. You need to understand the root cause. And so that was, eye-opening for me. And, that's kind of the mentality that I always try to bring, because people tend to jump to conclusions too fast. So that's just one of the examples. And then, of course, we did, we put some new processes in place and new tools, and we saw this growing, so it worked. You have a control phase that is after the project. You keep, checking to make sure it's working. And if not, of course, you're going to go back and you see what needs to be changed. But at the time, our scores went back up and it really worked. So that's just
what did you change, or what did you implement? An example of one thing that you might have changed in the process.
So a big thing that we realized was that when the host was, taking the order via the telephone, they were not necessarily taking notes. They were inputting in the system while the person could forget. Yeah, right? Because people, they're doing that every day. So in their mind, I get it. It's like, oh, it's an automatic process. I'm not going to forget it, right? But you do forget. So basically what we created was, exactly what you need to tell the guest, what the guest, and then spaces for you to write down what the guests say, because there is a standard. You need to explain what room service is, because I don't know if in a lot of hotels, it's not the traditional room service anymore. So you need to explain that it's made to order, but it's packaged to go. And a lot of the comments of the guests were, oh, I didn't know it came in a bag. I thought it would be the tray, Right. So this checklist reminded the host of what to say, and also spaces for them to write things down to then put in the system to send the order to the kitchen. We also updated the whole micros. So micros is the system where, you put the orders in. Because when I observe, because part of the, process improvement projects is observing the process, there are a lot of items that were not in micros. So the host had to write a lot of things manually, which doesn't make sense. You need to make their jobs easier.
No, and then that would make sense why the chef wouldn't see it or would miss it or. Yeah.
But the thing is, I think for our associates, and in like any different industry, sometimes our associates are just tired of telling us because we're not doing anything, and you just need to stop, listen, and make changes because they know it's wrong. They've been doing it, So I think that it's the moment when you're running this project that you really stop, listen, and you're like, okay, what are quick wins that we can change right now? Like micros, we change it in a week, Right. So, and I'm not saying that no one was paying attention. It's just that the hosts are just so used to do it that maybe it got to a point that no one was just voicing their opinion, So that's why it's important to talk and ask and check in with your associates to make sure that things are going well. So we changed micros. We have a phone that we dispatch the orders, and we dispatch to the runners, when to pick it up, when to, where to drop the order. So we just started tracking that data better to see, how long it's actually taking for the runner to deliver the order, what are the issues. So we realized that it was important to have people actually stationed at the kitchen, not runners running around the building, which is 47 floors. That can take a long time to come up and down to deliver food.
You think? My food is definitely going to be cold.
So there are like so many small things, but it's just, I love doing that kind of work because I'm making the host lives easy. The associates, we call them hosts. The associates' lives easier, and that really makes me happy. I love doing that.
I love that you love improving the process because, I know that a lot of us have high aspirations for that, but when you're actually seeing the change happen, it's so rewarding, isn't it?
Yes.
That's so rewarding. So talk to us a little bit about, I happen to be from the Boston area. I grew up on the Cape and went to school in Boston myself. So tell us, during your time there, what were your favorite things to do in Boston?
Oh my God. So I was in Boston for 2 years during my MBA, and I actually was coming straight from Brazil, and I think it was the worst winter ever, like so many years. So that was really interesting. I think from that moment on, I realized I want to move down to the South.
Yeah.
But no.
Me too.
So I really enjoyed, do you remember this pastry shop called Mike's Pastry?
Of course, in the North End. It's still there.
Yes. So I liked Mike's because they were in Cambridge. And to be fair, you know, school was so demanding that I didn't have a lot of time to go to Boston. I mean, it's really close, but I was most of the time in Cambridge.
In Cambridge.
There is a Venezuelan restaurant. It's called Orinoco. Very good. It's in Cambridge as well. I loved it. I mean, I haven't been back in a few years, but, you know, I think they've had been there for a long time. So I'm hoping they're still there. But so many things open in Cambridge. Like I remember, I love this salad place called Sweet Green, and they were not in Boston when I was there, but I heard that they open now. And you have like Pete's Coffee in Cambridge.
Right.
I just love walking in that area. It's so cute. And, you know, I just love walking through campus because my campus was not where like Harvard is. You know, the business campus is it's, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes away. Right. So I just felt that like the business campus was a bit isolated, you know, so I like to cross the bridge and just go towards Cambridge.
And it's such, and Harvard does have a gorgeous campus. I've been on the lower, you know, the undergrad campus. And walked by the MBA campus. But that whole area is so pretty and it's so different now. I mean, it's been a long time since I've gone to school there. So it's been a long time since I've actually kind of investigated Cambridge because every time we go back, we're going back for a short stint in the summer because we try to avoid the cold.
Yeah. I think it was in the summer that they have the Charles River. What is that big event that they have the sailing team?
It's the crew. It's the crew event. It's the, why am I losing my mind?
Yeah, me too. But that was beautiful because it was nice weather and
it's gorgeous.
Just the river just looks so pretty with, you know, everybody there. And, you know, I think now, I guess things will be a little bit different, but I hope they keep those traditions.
I do too, even in the really, really cold weather.
Yeah.
Let's talk. I'd love to hear a little bit about any recent experiences that you've had that kind of wowed you from other big brands, or it really wouldn't matter to me. I just am interested to hear what we've experienced in your travels or, you know, just in your day to day, any particular customer or guest experience that's kind of blown you away and that you've taken away and you might, you know, kind of try to implement that in your day to day work.
So I think that now traveling during, you know, coronavirus times, you know, not a lot of people have traveled and I completely understand that. I decided to travel a little bit, you know, of course, taking all the precautions, wearing a mask and, you know, doing whatever I can do to make, you know, my life safer and also other people's life safer. But I try to travel because I want to experience that change. And since I work in hospitality, I want to see what other companies are doing, right? And it doesn't necessarily need to be in a hotel. Like I like going to a restaurant to see what they're doing or just, you know, visiting an attraction to see what are the things they have in place. And I actually went recently, maybe a month and a half ago, to Disney. They have a resort in Hilton Head.
Right.
Yeah, it's very cute. And I have a friend who has, you know, the timeshare, I think they call Disney Vacation Club.
Yes.
So she had points with Disney Vacation Club and we found a very good deal in the middle of the week. And since I was working, you know, different hours that week, we were able to go from like a Monday to a Wednesday. And the hotel was pretty busy. Like I thought they were, you know, there were a lot of kids and families. And I just thought they were doing such a great job. So first of all, you get there, they have the check. It's the first house where you come with your car. It's where they have the check-in area. And they tell you when you first come in that they just want one person of the party to go up and check in, you know, to avoid crowds. So my friend went up, she did the check-in. They told us where to park. So we went to the rooms. They're a little bit different because they are like the Disney Vacation Club. So they're larger. So, you know, in the room, we had signs explaining how the room was cleaning and disinfected. They have those like big shampoos, conditioner amenities in the bathroom, like a lot of hotels now have instead of the small ones. all those amenities were like covered in plastic with signs saying it had been, cleaned. We had the remote control was also covered in plastic with a sticker. So all these new things in place that I thought, was really nice to see. And then, of course, like all the other things they had in the closet, like extra blankets, extra, duvet covers, they were all packaged and nicely done. And then in the public space, of course, lots of signs, the pool, they had, the chairs, with the 6 feet away or like, adapted to whatever kind of family. If you had 4 people in your party, of course, they would put chairs, close by. And in the pool, they had someone like cleaning the pool, not the pool itself, but like the rails all the time. That person was like going around, someone touches the rail, that person would go
in circles.
So I was probably in the pool for 2 hours. That lady, she did not stop cleaning that pool. So I think that now, it is all about, it's a lot about first impressions and what you see. Right. I think that before, if you think about hospitality as a concert or a theater, there's the backstage and there's on stage. I think that now it's all on stage because people want to know what you're doing. Like the guests want to know, how do you clean? How is it done? I remember when I started, my career back in 2016, it was all about, creating a seamless experience and doing things in the backstage so that for the guest, it was like, oh my God, how did this show up here? That's so magical. Right. But now I think people just want to know. So like if there's an amenity in my room, how is this sanitized? Like, is the amenity correct? Plastic? So all these things that before maybe people were not paying attention, now they want to know. And that's why I think training the staff and everybody being on the same, everybody needs to be on the same page. That's more important than ever.
So I know you profiled that property and that experience that you had there on your blog. Will you talk a little bit about your blog?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, I have started my blog because so many people ask me, how is it life working in hospitality? And I think people just think it was so different, coming out of an MBA and just choosing a career that is not a very traditional path, it's not very common to see people going into hotel operations, in general after an MBA. So in the beginning, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to start and I'm just going to do whatever I feel like, posting. I want to show my career in hospitality. But with time, I travel so much too, that also became, a way for me to show my travels and give people a different point of view. I think that, I'm not a blogger that travels and want to take pretty pictures. I think that, that's okay. But my goal is to bring a different perspective. Yes, I want to have a nice picture, but I want to share from a hotelier point of view, how my experience was, and I think that people are so interested in that because I'm like bringing that different, perspective. And that's why I started my blog. So it kind of evolved. And so I brought more travel in because in the end, it's not that I can show a lot of the backstage, right? I cannot be taking pictures of the backstage of a hotel, but I can talk about it, but, not necessarily through images. And I try to, interview hoteliers nowadays. I try to talk about my travels. But to be fair, someone once told me, you want to start something, just start. And that was how I started. I didn't have any plans or any, what they call content strategy. It was just, I'm going to show what I feel like showing regarding hospitality. And with time, I'm a small blog, small Instagram, but I just find a way to, it's my creative side. Like you have your podcast, I just like having something for my creative side. And that's really, I have fun doing it.
And remind everybody where they can find it.
So it's hospitalityvitae.com. Vitae means life or career in Latin. And, I speak Portuguese, and Portuguese, comes from Latin. So there are a few words that I know, and I just really love that word, and I just want to put them together. So that's it.
And your Instagram handle is also Hospitality Vitae?
Yes, the same handle. Yes.
Excellent. So give us a couple of examples of some special things that your team does to make guests feel special when they're in the hotel.
Yeah, sure. So I think that there are two things that I usually look at. One, it's anticipating needs. And I think when you have a lot of data, available that I told you I'm lucky to have, if you don't really, translate that data into actionable information, that's just lost. So I really like to dig into the data to understand who is my customer, why is he coming here, what is he doing here. So all those things I can find, very easily with the data I have in hand, and that helps me anticipate needs. So if you think about your business, if you have a restaurant or if you have a small retail shop, who are your customers? So that's very important. And, in the hotel, I guess in the word like pre-COVID, we did get huge conferences in my hotel. So, it's business travelers, they're maybe there for 1 to 3 days. They like to do the check-in using the mobile check-in because they want to go in and out. So all these things that we knew about them, we could use to make their experience like seamless. So I think anticipation of needs, is a big, big one. And one thing that I learned when I told you I did my rotations, I worked in a Ritz-Carlton in Washington, D.C., and I really love luxury hotels. I think I'm passionate about it, and I think one day in my career I'll go back to, a luxury property. It was all about preferences, and I remember at the time, so that was back in 2017. Now we have a system for that, but before, we would give our hosts at the Ritz-Carlton like a piece of paper, like it was a little notepad, and they would just cover preferences of the guests. So like if you talk to a guest in the restaurant and you were a server and you found out it's their wedding day, or you found out that they really like, orange juice with 2, ice cubes, whatever, you could write that down. And we had a database of preferences so that we knew what the guests wanted or liked, and then they would be very surprised later on when they go to another potential Ritz property and they get an orange juice with 2 cubes. How did you know that? So they had, so that was a big thing at Ritz-Carlton. And now, we have one system now in place, so we can really see preferences from other hotels as well. So we can see preferences are like the guest preference, it translates to different brands, right? So if I look at the guest profile and I know that he likes this, doesn't matter if I'm at a Ritz-Carlton or a Marriott or a Renaissance, I could act on that preference, But there is a difference because preference is something that they that's constant. It's not like if they travel with their kids and someone found out that the kids really like chocolate and they put chocolate in the room. If that guest travels for business and all the time he gets chocolate in the room, that doesn't necessarily a preference, because he could go back and say, why do you always put chocolate in my room? Like, I really like to work out. I eat healthy. Like, I don't need chocolate. So you can't really mix what's a preference with what's something that happened on one travel, like
right. Exactly.
So, because he was there with his kids,
his family, right? Yeah. Different trip. So then, sometimes we had some mix up, but then we would figure it out. Okay, this is really a preference. So like, this is not a preference. Right.
It's something that it's a one-off. Yeah. He's there with his family,
That's a big thing in our business as well when we talk about anticipating needs. And that's based on customer feedback. over, several years, right? It's the same thing that you're talking about, where we go back and where we see, okay, we can do this better. We can do that better. And you and I, we're in our businesses, our companies, in our jobs and our roles every single day, all day long. So we kind of know what we're doing. And sometimes when you're not conscious about, kind of making these little milestones along the way for the experience, it definitely does make an impact whether you do it or not, right? So when you do it, when you do that little thing with serving the orange juice with the 2 ice cubes, that can really set the tone for the rest of the experience, that one little thing. And so that's definitely something that we've also focused on. And I love hearing that, other companies are doing the same thing. We did have Horst on. Horst came on last year and he talked to us about the anticipatory needs. He talked about empowering the teammates to help any guest having a situation or a challenge. And so, you're speaking right to that. And I really appreciate that because it kind of threads all the way through.
And he's a role model, definitely.
He's definitely a role model. So before we wrap up, tell me, do you have a couple of maybe 1 or 2 actionable pieces of advice that you would share with our listeners to, get more engagement either from your teammates in order to deliver that guest experience, or anything that you would like to share with our listeners would be great.
Yeah, sure. So when we spoke about, some of the projects I do and, my role as, operational excellence, I think a big one, like a big actionable item that you can start right away is, listen to your associates. Stop whatever you're doing, put in your calendar. I'm going to have a one-on-one meeting with, my front of the line hosts to understand what is going on. If you can do it, this week, I would say do it. Because there's just so many things happening now and so many things impacting the day-to-day of our hosts and associates that, taking that 15-minute, 30-minute of your time to talk to them will really, I think, make an impact. And that's, again, what I call the voice of the customer. So that's the internal customer, which, if he's happy, if your associate is engaged, if they have the tools and resources they need, they will do their job, they will perform. And your job as a leader will be, even easier because you have a team that is empowered and a team that is, ready to make a difference. So I think that's, definitely a big one. And then the voice of the customer, your guests or your, clients, how are you getting their feedback? If not necessarily you have a research in place, I'm very grateful to have a big, a lot of researches and, a lot of data. But what can you do? What's the one question you can ask your clients, to get that feedback and that input that you need to understand how your processes are going or how your business is going, if people are, satisfied. And I think in the hotel perspective, the big question is, what's your intent to return? Would you return to the place? That's what tells us, if they give us a 9 or a 10, it means that they had a very good experience. And if they give us a 7 and an 8, how we can make that experience better for next time they can give us a 9 or a 10. So I think you can look at, Net Promoter Score, or, you can do some research to see the different ways, the different types of research there are out there. But, if you can ask one question, what would you ask? And if you are in the front line with your associates, how can you interact with the guests to right away ask, how was your experience? Was there anything I could do that I could have made it better? I think that really, is impactful. Sometimes we might think, but it's just one question, but you can find out so many things, because when I'm checking guests out and I ask, how was your stay? That's when they will tell me, if they tell me, it was okay. Okay is not okay. Like, I want it to be excellent. So what could I have done better? And sometimes we're a little bit afraid of asking the question because we know that we might hear what we don't want to hear, but that's the only way to, act on those issues and change it for the better. And I think the last one would be, I think with coronavirus, we had to be flexible, right? Like we have to change and make changes on a daily basis. But there's still some resistance to change. And that's going to be in any business, right? So, always. So I think for you as a business owner, or, even if you don't own a business, you will work in a corporate office. I think for me, it's always, you have to, when you're trying to implement changes, you always need to show to the people that are impacted what's in for them. So that's the big question, like what's in. So in my case, the room service project that we were talking about, like what's in for the person who is taking the calls? What's in for the chef? What's in for the hotel? For the hotel, our food scores are going to go up. For the chef, he's going to stop having orders that are not right. He's going to deliver a better product.
Right.
And for the associate that is picking up the calls, hey, you're going to have guests that are not calling back and saying, where's my order? Where's my fork? You forgot something. So you really need to show to everybody who is involved in that process what's in for them. Because once they understand that they will win, that together we will win, people will be more, they will want to at least try to make that happen.
And I love that, because then it also shows that, you in management or operations are actually listening to the team that is delivering the service. And when they feel heard and understood, and then things that they're giving you feedback on actually get addressed, that makes a giant impact on the end user's experience, right? So, I so enjoyed talking to you today. Thank you so much for taking time out. And, we definitely will be, in the show notes, have your, blog and Instagram handle up there for people to come check you out. And I wanted to thank everybody for listening. I'm so proud to share this show with you, as these stories do prioritize the customer experience or guest experience as a legit business strategy, reminding us that no matter the business that you are in, whether it be real estate, hospitality, teaching, consulting, the customer experience should always be the heart of the business.